Have you ever looked back on a period of your life and asked yourself, how did I put up with that for so long? The silence, the disrespect, the inner unrest that kept knocking until it became unbearable. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And so we tolerate, we rationalize, we minimize, we tell ourselves it's not that bad, until one day something breaks." This video is not about blaming ourselves. It's about waking up. Because the truth is, the second half of life has a different rhythm, a different demand. We are no longer here to please, to pretend, to postpone our truth. Jung didn't just map the human psyche. He left us warnings, silent alarms about what we should no longer endure, especially after a certain age. Because each time we tolerate what wounds us, we betray something sacred inside. This is not about perfection. It's about self-respect, about reclaiming your right to live with depth, honesty, and peace. So here are the 10 behaviors that Jung, through his life's work, urges us never to tolerate again. Let's begin. How many times have you swallowed your anger? How often have you dismissed your own sadness with a hurried, "I'm fine"? From childhood, many of us were taught that some emotions are too much. That showing fear, disappointment, or vulnerability would only burden others. So we learn to silence ourselves, to hide the truth bubbling just beneath our skin. But Jung warned, what we repress does not disappear. It returns, sometimes as anxiety, sometimes as illness, sometimes as a constant, quiet unhappiness. By disrespecting our own feelings, we become strangers in our own bodies. We nod, we smile, we endure. But deep inside, a quiet resentment grows. We may even lose touch with what we truly want, need, or believe. There is no dignity in ignoring your heart. There is no wisdom in turning away from the ache inside. Feelings are not inconveniences to be suppressed. They are messengers from the depths, calling us back to what matters. Jung believed that real change begins when we finally listen. Listen to the anger that says, "Enough." Listen to the sadness that asks for rest. Listen to the joy that wants to be followed. To tolerate the disrespect of your own feelings is to declare yourself unworthy of your own truth. The path back begins with a simple act of courage, to sit with what you feel, to treat your emotions, not as problems but as guides, and to remember your feelings are not liabilities. They are evidence that you are alive and still longing for more. How many times have you found yourself shrinking to fit someone else's expectations? How often have you excused cruelty, dishonesty, or neglect in the name of keeping the peace? Jung understood that relationships are at the heart of our psychological growth, yet too often we stay bound to people who diminish us, drain us, or manipulate our sense of self-worth. Why? Because we fear loneliness, because we've been taught to endure, because we mistake pain for loyalty, and criticism for love. But here's the truth Jung brings us. Every time you tolerate a relationship that poisons your spirit, you teach yourself that your boundaries don't matter. You lose small pieces of your identity, your dreams, your energy. And with every compromise, your soul grows quieter. Toxicity doesn't always come with shouting or violence. Sometimes it's a subtle erosion, the partner who belittles your ambitions, the friend who only calls when they need something, the family member who guilt trips you into silence. Jung warned against allowing these dynamics to become our normal. He believed that to grow, we must recognize when a relationship no longer nurtures, but depletes us. There is no shame in outgrowing connections that once fit. There is only courage, the courage to walk away from what harms you, and to trust that healthier, truer relationships are possible. Life is too short to spend in rooms where your soul cannot breathe. Value yourself enough to demand respect, honesty, and kindness. And remember, letting go is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of profound self-respect. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and recognized the person staring back? Not just the outer image, but the one beneath the surface, your truest self, unmasked, unfiltered. Jung famously said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And yet, how often do we betray that privilege? We slip into roles. The dependable parent, the tireless provider, the peacekeeper, the strong one. We wear these masks for years, sometimes decades, until we almost forget what's underneath. Neglecting. Your authenticity doesn't always mean living a lie. Sometimes it means living a half-truth, dimming your own light so others feel comfortable, hiding your passions because they seem impractical, laughing at jokes that wound you, or agreeing with beliefs that are not your own, but the cost is real. Each time you abandon your true self, you chip away at your vitality, your joy, your sense of belonging to your own life. You might begin to feel like an outsider in your own story. Jung warned us, the soul cannot thrive in captivity. If you live too long behind a mask, you risk forgetting your own face. What does authenticity require? Honesty, first with yourself, then with the world. The willingness to disappoint others rather than betray your deepest self, and the courage to reclaim your uniqueness, even if it means walking a lonelier road. Remember, your authenticity is not a luxury, it is your birthright. The world needs you, not a watered-down version, not a shadow, but the vivid truth of who you really are. Every day you have a chance to return to yourself. It's never too late. Whose life are you really living? It's a hard question, because from a young age many of us were trained to please, to earn approval, to be good, to follow the script, go to school, choose a stable career, settle down. Don't ask too many questions. But as Jung taught, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. And for many adults, that burden never leaves. We internalize expectations that were never truly ours. We carry dreams that belong to someone else. We obey rules that silence our own longings. Maybe you chose the job because it made others proud. Maybe you stayed in a relationship because it looked right from the outside. Maybe you buried your art, your voice, your truth, because somewhere along the way, someone told you it wasn't practical or acceptable. Living under the weight of others' expectations is a quiet kind of grief. You look successful but feel empty. You stay busy but feel disconnected. You do everything right, yet something inside whispers, this isn't it. Jung believed that midlife is when the soul begins to rebel, not out of selfishness but out of necessity. It's the moment when your true self knocks at the door, asking to be let in. So ask yourself, whose voice are you obeying? What have you abandoned in order to be accepted? And more importantly, what would it mean to finally choose your own path? To live a life that is truly yours may cause discomfort. It may disappoint others, but it will heal you. And there is no deeper peace than living in alignment with your own truth. How many ideas have you let wither inside you? How many melodies, paintings, stories, or inventions have you silenced before they ever saw the light of day? Jung believed that creativity is not a luxury or a hobby. It is a vital force woven into the very fabric of our souls. When we suppress our creative impulses out of fear, shame, or the belief that it's too late, we turn away from one of the most life-giving sources of meaning. Perhaps someone once told you, you're not talented enough, or there's no time for that. Perhaps you've convinced yourself that creativity is frivolous, or that the best years for self-expression are behind you. But the truth is, creativity is not about age or talent. It is about aliveness. It is the spark that brings color to ordinary days, that allows us to transform pain into beauty and longing into vision. When you deny yourself the joy of making, you deny a part of your humanity. You become rigid, restless, disconnected from the deeper stream of life. Jung saw creative acts as essential for psychological health. He wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity." That play instinct does not disappear with age. It only grows more necessary as we search for meaning. It's never too late to start. Paint badly, write poorly, sing off-key. The point is not perfection, it is liberation. To let your hands and heart move, to express what words alone cannot capture. Creativity is not about producing masterpieces. It is about reconnecting with the source inside you that refuses to be silenced. Every act of creation is an act of self-respect. So, give yourself permission to make something, anything today. Let your soul breathe. Have you ever wondered why certain situations trigger you so deeply? Why you keep repeating old patterns, even when you know they lead to pain? Jung introduced the world to the concept of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we deny, reject, or hide away. Our anger, jealousy, fear, insecurity, the impulses we're ashamed of, the truths we'd rather not see. Most people spend a lifetime running from their shadow. We blame others, we distract ourselves, we cover discomfort with busyness, consumption, or endless self-improvement. But whatever we refuse to face within, we end up projecting onto the world around us. Jung warned, what you do not make conscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Avoiding the confrontation with your shadow keeps you trapped in cycles of frustration and regret. You repeat the same arguments, attract the same wounds, and wonder why nothing ever truly changes. But facing your shadow is not an act of self-punishment. It is an act of courage and liberation. It means gently turning inward, asking, what parts of myself do I fear? What am I ashamed to admit even to myself? What pain have I buried so deeply it now wears a mask? When you stop running and begin to meet your shadow with honesty and compassion, something extraordinary happens. You reclaim lost energy. You become less reactive and more whole. You discover that your darkness holds wisdom, not just wounds. Jung believed that our shadows are not enemies to destroy, but teachers to embrace. They show us where we have work to do and where we have hidden strengths waiting to be integrated. To tolerate the avoidance of your shadow is to choose a half-lived life, but to face it is to step onto the path of true freedom and self-acceptance. How many times has your body whispered to you, only for you to ignore it? A tightness in your chest, a sleepless night, a fatigue that no amount of rest seems to cure. Or perhaps your mind, clouded with anxiety, restlessness, or a persistent sense of unease. In our world, strength is often measured by our ability to push through. We praise endurance, celebrate those who never complain, and treat exhaustion as a badge of honor. But Jung saw things differently. He understood that the psyche and the body are intimately linked, each constantly sending signals about what needs attention, healing, or change. When you ignore these signals, you betray yourself. You risk turning discomfort into disease, stress, into chronic pain, or sadness into depression. You start living on autopilot, disconnected from the only vessel you will ever truly inhabit. The body is wise. The mind is honest, even when your words are not. Symptoms are not enemies. They are messages. Jung believed that much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from our refusal to listen to ourselves. When you pay attention, you may find that your back pain is connected to a burden you no longer wish to carry, that your anxiety is a signal you are living out of alignment with your values, that your sadness is a call to grieve, to slow down, to reconnect. There is no virtue in numbing out your own experience. There is no reward for pretending you are invulnerable. Instead, offer yourself a new kind of strength, the courage to pause, to listen, to ask gently, what are you trying to tell me? And then to respond with care, not punishment. Your body and mind are not obstacles to overcome. They are allies on the path to a fuller, freer life. When was the last time you truly sat in silence? Not just without noise, but without distraction, without a plan, without needing to be anywhere or anyone for someone else. In today's world, solitude is often mistaken for loneliness, and silence is filled at every opportunity, with phones, conversations, obligations, background noise. But Jung believed that it is only in solitude and silence that we meet ourselves. Without moments of quiet, your inner voice is drowned out. The wisdom that surfaces when you are alone, the insights, the memories, the unspoken dreams, are easily missed in the constant buzz of daily life. Yet, many fear being alone. Silence can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. It forces us to face what we have avoided. Old grief, regrets, unrealized hopes, or the uncomfortable question, who am I when no one is watching? But Jung saw solitude as essential for growth. He wrote, solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living. It is in these quiet spaces that we integrate what we have learned, process what we have lost, and listen to the whisper of the soul. To underestimate the value of silence and solitude is to risk never truly knowing yourself. It is to remain at the surface, chasing the next distraction instead of plumbing the depths of your being. Make time for silence. Welcome solitude, not as a punishment, but as a gift. It is in those still moments that the scattered parts of yourself can gather, can become whole again. Silence is not empty. It is the place where your true voice can finally be heard. Do you ever catch yourself moving through your days on autopilot, following the same routines, ticking off tasks, but feeling strangely hollow inside? Many people reach a point in life where stability replaces adventure, and predictability takes the place of purpose. There's comfort in routine. It can be soothing, grounding, and necessary for a time. But Jung warned against surrendering entirely to a life that is only repetition, stripped of deeper meaning. He observed that the soul withers when our days become nothing but maintenance, when we stop asking why and settle for just because. When we forget what truly moves us, excites us, and gives us a sense of belonging to something larger than ourselves. Routine without purpose is a slow drift toward numbness. You may not feel acute pain, but you lose the spark that once made you feel alive. Days blend into weeks and weeks into years, with little to distinguish one from the next. Jung believed that the second half of life is not meant to be a slow decline into resignation. It is a time for reawakening, to explore new passions, revisit old dreams, and find meaning even in the ordinary. Ask yourself, what would it take to infuse your routines with intention? What purpose, however small, could you claim for this chapter of your life? It doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes purpose is found in a creative project, in helping others, in learning something new, or in nurturing relationships that matter. Don't let the comfort of routine become the cage that keeps you from living. Break the pattern. Try something new. Remember what makes your heart beat faster. Purpose is not a privilege of the young. It is the birthright of everyone who chooses to live. Awake. Have you ever thought, this is just who I am, there's nothing left to discover? Or felt that after a certain age, real change or growth is no longer possible? Jung would gently but firmly challenge this resignation. He believed that the journey of self-knowledge is lifelong, and it only deepens with age. To give up on understanding yourself, especially in midlife and beyond, is to abandon the richest territory you have yet to explore. Too often, we accept labels and stories handed to us by others. You're the strong one. You're too sensitive. You never finish what you start. But these are only fragments, echoes of someone else's narrative. Real self-knowledge asks, who am I beneath the roles I've played? What wounds still shape my choices? What desires have I silenced? What gifts have I yet to claim? Some avoid this inquiry because it is uncomfortable. It may mean facing regrets, unhealed pain, or recognizing the ways we've abandoned ourselves. But Jung reminds us, whatever remains unconscious directs our life without our awareness. Only by shining a light inward can we reclaim our agency, our creativity, our wholeness. Self-knowledge is not about perfection. It is about compassion, accepting both your strengths and your flaws, your light and your shadow. It is about forgiving yourself for being unfinished and embracing the ongoing work of becoming. No matter your age, you can still surprise yourself. You can still grow, heal, and discover new layers of meaning. Do not settle for a life unexamined. Keep asking, keep listening, keep returning to yourself. For as long as you are alive, the adventure of self-discovery remains open. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready. Ready to stop tolerating what diminishes you. Ready to reclaim the life that quietly calls your name. But how do you begin? How do you shift from endurance to authenticity, from silence to self-respect? The answer is simple but not easy. You start by saying no. No to the behaviors, the relationships, and the patterns that keep you small. No to the voice that says you have to please everyone, fit in, or pretend. No to the old stories that told you your needs didn't matter, or that change is impossible. After a certain age, Jung believed that every act of no is also an act of yes. When you refuse to betray yourself, you say yes to possibility, yes to healing, yes to a deeper, more honest life. But remember, You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Start small. Set one new boundary. Speak one honest sentence. Honor one feeling you've ignored. Reclaim 1 hour for solitude or creativity. Each act of truth, no matter how minor, sends a message to your psyche. I am listening. I am worthy. I am willing to change. And with each step, you'll find that life becomes lighter. Relationships become more authentic. Peace, long buried beneath the weight of tolerance, begins to emerge. So, what will you no longer tolerate? What is the one thing, big or small, you will begin to say no to starting today? You are not here to live someone else's life. You are not here to remain hidden or diminished. You are here to become more fully yourself, day by day, moment by moment. The journey is not linear. There will be setbacks and doubts, but the commitment to live truthfully is always worth it. Choose yourself. Say no where you must, and step bravely into the life that is waiting for you. Practical tips to begin. Today, identify one area of your life where you feel drained or resentful. Start there. Practice pausing before automatically saying yes to requests. Ask yourself, is this true for me? Keep a journal. Write honestly about what you feel, what you want, and what you no longer wish to tolerate. Seek out supportive relationships, people who respect your boundaries and celebrate your growth. Remember that discomfort is normal when you begin to change. Be gentle with yourself. You do not have to tolerate what stifles your soul. Jung's wisdom is not about perfection. It's about permission. Permission to listen, to choose, to live honestly, and to honor your one wild and precious life. The second, half of life is not an ending but a profound beginning. It's your time, claim it.